across the various sectors of life in this country. And therefore, responsibility also in fighting the same lies equally in all of us across the various sectors of our society or our communities in Kenya. So it's our view, and a very strong view, that this coming together of us today through this framework will define a very clear way forward as we state clearly to the people of this country today. And we will also be led to engage other sectors in the same way and see in what ways we can stand together and make a difference in as far as proper governance is concerned in our environment in this country. We are not talking about just drawing a framework, not just talking about what we desire to see around. We are going to also have practical activities that are going to lead us into the changes in our society that we want to see, and therefore urge each and every one of us as we are here, and also the people of this country, to give us support and the right and correct hand in pushing the matter forward. It's a campaign that we are going to engage in together, and it's a campaign that we have all the hopes that is going to make difference, and especially when it's led by people from the religious or the faith-based sector. I once again thank you and wish all of us all the best in executing this joint partnership, and welcome you to this auspicious occasion. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wako, for the helping in the introduction, and I hope now people have a clearer view of who is present. As from the Interreligious Council of Kenya, I wish to thank the EACC for this partnership, and this is a journey which we are very committed to, and which we have been forging ahead. Even before this partnership, the religious groups are very committed to ethical behavior, values in society, and anti-corruption. And to give a perspective of the various stances of the religious community, I want to invite just a small part of the religious leaders who are present here today to say one or two things, because they have expressed fairly strong views. I know most of them have not been informed that they are going to say something, but I hope they cannot lack something to say as we come into this structured partnership between the faith communities and the Ethics and Corruption Commission. And to start us off, I would wish to ask my elder, the chair of the National Muslim Leaders Forum, Sheikh Abdullah Abdi, to start. And I just wish to give maybe slightly bigger warning to Bishop Mark that he's next, so that also the movement isn't up a bit. So Sheikh Abdullah Abdi, if you would want to say one or two things around the stance of the NAMLEF and the religious community on this issue, maybe just 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. Please, Sheikh Abdullah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, may I take this opportunity to thank the EACC for making us all to meet here today. I think this is the only single issue that all Kenyans agree upon is of major concern to this country. I think we are all agreed as Kenyans that this is what has kept Kenya behind. It would have moved miles and miles ahead, but kept us behind. And we believe a lot of crimes in this country is being caused or contributed to by this thing. As religious leaders, we are being taught to teach good ethics and high moral standards. Corruption is completely on the opposite side of what we teach. Since this is not my day to talk too much, I just want quickly just to concentrate on ourselves as religious leaders. We have been chosen by our Creator to lead our people. Having chosen us, we are also exemplary for the people who are behind us or who follow us. We need to ask ourselves, are we upholding the standards that's expected of us? Are we upholding the moral values that we teach? Are we upholding the ethical standards that we want others to follow? I think the onus is on us. We have been given the opportunity in terms of partnership by an institution that is paid for by the people of Kenya by our taxes. And they have made us to meet here in order to support the Kenyan person who is on the street to make sure that his shilling and pence is being spent in the right way. Are we going to be the right partner? More importantly, it's not only the people of Kenya. We have got a moral responsibility to our Creator. Whether you're a Muslim or a Christian, a Hindu, or whatever other faith you follow, we all are answerable to our Creator. And we need to deliver to be seen by not only by the people, by our Creator, that we are doing what we task other people to do. So, my brothers and sisters who sit here today, I think a hand of friendship and partnership has been extended to us by EACC. I hope that we'll be able to fulfill what is expected of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh. For those remarks, I invite Bishop Dr. Mark Kariuki on behalf of the EAK, Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, to say something.
Thank you so very much. All protocols observed. I do believe that nobody here applied to be born a Kenyan. It was by God's design that God ordained you would be born a Kenyan. For those of you who are Kenyans, for those who are non-Kenyans, God ordained you would be born in your own nation. And in the scriptures, he tells Jeremiah, before you were born, before you were conceived in your mother's womb, I knew you. I called you. I ordained you. Therefore, for us, every one of us has a purpose of being here in this place. And God ordained that we would be in Kenya when corruption is at its highest. And we would be a people that are opposed to corruption. And yet, it is at its highest. That means God put in us the ability to fight corruption and bring it to an end. If we are willing and obedient, we shall succeed. Once we have been divided by politics and politicians, we have this one thing that brings us together, that makes us one army, one force, the fight against corruption. That as we come together, we are not bothered what party you affiliate yourself to or what convictions you have. But we have this conviction. We have an enemy to fight. This enemy is called corruption. So we don't just fight it from our pulpits. We fight it from every angle. I'm remembering when I was growing up in primary school, we used to sing the national anthem. And after the national anthem, we would say, I pledge my loyalty to the president and the nation of Kenya, and the way it went. And everybody had to say the royalty pledge. And I am feeling we need to come up with a loyalty pledge against corruption, that we teach our kids in nursery school, in class 1, so that as we grow up, we start growing a generation that is against corruption. If we just deal with the fruits of the tree, we will not succeed. But we've got to go to the roots and start right at the bottom. Let us teach this in our schools. Let us teach this to the small kids. It is very easy for a small kid to be riding in the same car with the dad, and if the dad gives the police officer some money, the kid will tell dad, "Daddy, teacher said that is bad, that is wrong, that is corruption." It is so easy. So let us not just deal with a plan and program to deal with the fruits. Let's go right to the root and aim at having a generation that is going to grow knowing that corruption is bad. We at the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya have adopted a program where we are teaching on the life of integrity, how to live a life of integrity. And we have partnered with many other people, and we are going all over the country teaching this, because we are committed to fighting corruption. In this battle, we are together. And I have this conviction: we shall win. We shall not be cast down, but we shall rise up and win. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Mark, I now wish to call the chairman of the Hindu Council of Kenya, Mr. Nitin Malde, to say a few words, and then we'll have the vice chairman of OAIC.
Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters with divine soul. Indeed, it is good gesture from EACC for having this partnership joint framework with 5 sectors. And we as a religious fraternity are really proud, and we have a lot of hope that one of our own religious leader is heading this great commission. And when Archbishop Wabukala has joined this EACC, the people of Kenya, Wananchi, had a lot of hope. And we know that whatever is happening in recent days, it proves that action speaks louder than words, and we will see more changes in coming days. When we see in the Olympic and other international events, when our athletics get medals and we feel proud. Similarly, when we see the downgraded ratings in terms of this merit of corruption and all those things, we feel shame. So we need to change this scenario, and for that only religious leader or commission or government cannot. But all of us have to come together, join hand, and we have to work together. And we believe in God. We have to be patriotic. We need prosper and progressive Kenya. That is why we have to work together. And it is said that when the leader is able, then automatically governance will be stable, and that Wabukala is proving. And we also wish to advise the government of Kenya that specifically to progress of Kenya, remove red tapes, instead put red carpets, so we get more investment and this hurdle of corruption can be curbed. So once again, our full support is with you, as my previous speakers have spoken. We are always partners in progress, and our full support, congratulations and compliments for this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malde. I'll ask Archbishop John Marete to say a few words on behalf of the Organization of African Institute of Churches.
Good morning. The song that we sang this morning, number 4, and I'm agreeing with Bishop Makariuki that this can be a starting point to our children in primary school, that they sing this as a national anthem alongside the common national anthem, because it brings out very clear intention. Number 4 says that tunania, we are willing. We will create that willingness in our people right from the beginning. And then we say kuna sababu, we have a reason. What is that reason? Corruption is eating our society. Corruption is doing all that, what you don't desire. Let our children start having that reason of fighting corruption. Uweso. This means that we are able to do it. We have all the methods. Tuko na mbinu sote. And because we have those mbinu and the uwezo, then it is the right time that we go down and they start teaching our children. Let them be included in the pastoral program, which is done every Friday, our schools in Kenya, so that our people can start to internalize that corruption is a disease that needs to be fought by each one of us. And therefore, on behalf of OAIC, we are together, we shall work together, and we are going to fight this war together. And definitely we are going to win. Praise God.
Amen. Thank you. If you just give space to Pastor Makori, the president of the SDA, to just say a few words also. Pastor Makori.
Good morning, everyone. The Seventh-day Adventist Church view corruption as sin. There's no other name. It is sin. It's not a crime. It is sin. And the Bible says the wages of sin is death. And because of that, we do not take it easily, and we want to, we include it in our sermons to the children, to the youth, to adults, to fight it, because at the end of it, if it's not addressed, it will lead ultimately to eternal death. That's how serious we take it. So it's not something we joke with. It's not something we give opportunity to flourish in our society. And I liked the core values. One of them is courage. And so I can say that as we are developing a partnership, what we'll need to fight corruption is courage. Because it is so engraved in our society that when you touch it, the perpetrators will come and bounce on you. They will see you as somebody on the wrong side, and so they will defend it. And as I was reading something, I came to a paragraph here from a book of a famous writer who described courage like this. To all religious leaders, said, the greatest want of the world is the want of men, and of course women. Men who will not be bought or sold. Men who in their innermost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name, including corruption. We don't have to baptize corruption. Like many people have baptized many sins. You know, these days in Kenya, if somebody commits adultery and runs away with someone's wife, they will say, "Yo ni mpango wa kando." You know, that's baptism. That's baptizing sin. It is people, the world needs people who will call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right though the heavens fall. That is the courage that is needed to fight this vice, this sin, and the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we are committed to that, from the pastorate to the lay people, from the young to the old, learned or ignorant, whatever the station in life. And so I would say that the EACC, we are there. You can count on us. We want to fight this sin because it will ultimately bring our country to its knees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Makori. You remind me the fact that we do have a very strong partnership with the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, and one of the issues when we developed a book on anti-corruption together with the national campaign, and one of the issues was the issue of baptizing corruption and giving it sweet names like chai or soda, and the need to call sin by its rightful name is a very important thing, and therefore we wish to invite the vice chair of, and who is the acting chair right now, of the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, Reverend Jesse, to come and say a few things for this launch, and also in recognition of the partnership that we already have with them as a campaign with the religious leaders. Reverend Jesse.
Good morning. Indeed, I was ambushed. I didn't know this was going to happen, but I thank God to be here and to be here amongst my brothers and sisters. We in National Association or National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, we are very much engaged in trying to see how we can curb the corruption. And the more we are trying, the way we are trying, we find it is finding some roots, and you see things emerging like mushrooms. But I believe what we are going to do here today, joining EACC with international religious, the same way which we have joined up with them, we know we are getting somewhere. But for me, what I would say, yes, it has been given many names, but there is something we all need to know. Corruption is a spirit. And a spirit, you don't see it. You just see the manifestations of what it brings out. How does this happen? We religious people, we know even when we are preaching, we know that every human being here, when God created us, said he is creating us in his own image. What does that mean? It means we have the body, the soul, and the spirit. What happens is that the spirit, in other words, you hear people calling them demons. And this spirit is invisible. You have a spirit in yourself, and your spirit connects with the other spirit. I'm not preaching, but I want us to understand that even those who are being born, because here now, we don't have to say, yes, okay, we have got to go to schools. How about those children who are coming? Even those who are in the stomachs, before they are born, they have got that spirit. And we know there is what is called DNA. We know what there is like generational. So you find that these things, they just go spreading over everybody. So we say, let's start the values from right homes. Before that child comes out into this world to come and meet with it, because it will be waiting, that spirit waiting, let us know how we can be able to curb, and we shall get somewhere. And then maybe we see how we are going to do. So with the religious people, the religious leaders, I know in your various churches, during your teaching, we know how we go about these things. But let us agree that we are fighting this animal, which is very, very enrooted, very deeply enrooted. But we are going to face it, and we are going to work in it. I have every belief that we are going to fight it, we are going to conquer, and that is going to happen once we put our spirit into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. We also recognize that the fight against corruption is a multi-sectoral fight. We, in the religious sector, do not pretend to have all the technical abilities and capacities that we need, and we rely on the people who have been fighting this corruption war for long, for technical expertise and inputs. And because of this, I want to invite the Executive Director of the Transparency International Kenya chapter, Mr. Samuel Kimeu, to come and say a few words. We know that Transparency International is one of the key institutions, not just in Kenya but globally, that has been involved in the fight against corruption, in education, and in strengthening of the governance mechanisms that are going to help us in the fight against corruption. So at this juncture, I invite Mr. Kimeu to say a few words and also greet you. Thank you.
Good morning. The fight against corruption is an important one in this country. I liken it to the fight for independence. We've talked about different liberations: the fight against colonialism, the fight for multi-party democracy, and the fight for a new constitution up to the third liberation. I would say that the fourth liberation is the fight against corruption. And it's perhaps one of the more difficult ones that we have to face. Because while in the fight for independence you had a clearly defined object of our agitation, this one requires us to speak and to take action against our own. It is our brothers and sisters, it is our mothers and fathers, it is our children that engage in this kind of thing. And so, as Reverend Makori was speaking and talking about courage, I was asking myself whether we are ready to do this kind of thing, because it basically means calling out on people who are very close to us and asking them to toe the line. Transparency International was founded in this country. In fact, this country inspired the founding of Transparency International. Our founder was the director of the World Bank between 1988 and 1990. And he was concerned about the many white elephants, the many resources that were provided by way of loans and development aid that only manifested in projects that were only halfway done because money had been misappropriated. And since then, if I look at then and now, I realize that the problem has become deeper. We define corruption at Transparency International as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. And therefore, if you look at that definition, with the elements of abuse of power, elements of trust, element of gain, you realize then that we are going beyond the criminal element of it. As a matter of fact, while the fight against corruption has been largely defined through the law enforcement angle, I think our definition is broad enough to include the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are that it's an ethical integrity question. And if you want to look at it more fundamentally, it's also a moral question. But we must also not lose sight of the fact that it's a criminal offense in this country. Why do I say this? I say this just to emphasize that the large work in the fight against corruption in this country has to be through prevention. I think there's a saying in Swahili, ukiona vyaelea vimeundwa. And you don't unda anything unless you roll up your sleeves and work at it. So what we are being asked to do now is to roll up our sleeves and basically build. And building is never an easy work. It's difficult. But when we build and we build properly, we will find that in future, this country has more resources at its disposal to deal with the fundamental issues of providing this country, for the citizens of this country, basic necessities, and as well as transform the country into a higher level of development. And that's why I'm excited to witness this event today, because I have, and Transparency International has always recognized the role of the religious sector, quality and potentially in the fight against corruption. Every village you look at today as a church, several of them, as a temple, Ethics and Anti-corruption Committee, your grace, and say that this is the right thing to do, and we will support this work going forward. But as I do that, I want to also say that the elections are coming, and I'd like to acknowledge the role that the religious community played in finding resolution to the issues affecting the IEBC a few months ago. We are being called again to play that leadership role. Our elections are going to be run. And I say this because through our research, we see a very close correlation between our elections and the corruption that we see. And as far as 20, 25 years ago, you can actually recognize that for every election that we've had a large corruption scandal. This has not changed. In fact, while previously it would be just one major scandal, you are having several scandals. And all of them can be explained by the fact that money has continued, the role of money in our politics has continued to be significant. And until we deal with the role of money, and especially illicit money, in our elections, we will not go very far. And therefore, the question and the challenge that I throw at us today is to internalize this connection between corruption and our elections, to recognize that the people we elect in the coming elections will have a significant role in determining what the direction of the country is in terms of the fight against corruption. And also to recognize that we as religious, for you as religious leaders, you have people who listen to you and follow you and seek your direction. And in this case, what I would urge is a greater emphasis on ethics and integrity in the elections, and to create that link very clearly for our people so that they can see. But I know that the question that is perhaps not very clear is, what is the standard that is going to be used? And I know it's something that we grapple with. The EACC grapples with that at the moment. I do know that questions are being asked, and I do know that there's going to be a backlash, or there is a backlash already regarding this attempt to try and inject some ethics and integrity in our politics. There is a bit of a contradiction in our laws and constitution, but I think the primary purpose of our Chapter 6 is quite clear, and that is our leadership must be leadership that is based on ethics and integrity. And in terms of just talking about building, we have a curriculum that is now being piloted. Let's take a keen interest in it, because reflecting on how societies have managed to transform themselves, education plays a key role. And I know that the religious community has a significant interest and stake in the education sector. So let's pay attention to the issue of the curriculum, and insist, insofar as the elections are concerned, on the ethical standard. It doesn't matter whether one has been convicted or not. If you are facing cases in the courts, questions that have not been cleared, if you have significant findings from our institutions that are in law charged with certain mandates, whether the courts have declared you guilty or not, the ethical question for purposes of leadership is that you are actually not qualified, in our view, to be on the ballot. The criminal standard that we insist on is purely for purposes of punishment and declaration of guilt of innocence of people, which really doesn't have the direct bearing on who qualifies to be a leader. I know that's a fairly controversial question, but we must resolve those issues. And whether we don't succeed in resolving them now, Mr. Chairman, we must then convene pretty early after the elections to try and sort out these issues ahead of any other elections we have in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam, for those challenges that you have thrown at us, placed on the table. These are very critical issues that the country must grapple with. and I believe that the wisdom of the religious leaders is important in resolving some of these national questions on what are the ethical standards for our candidates for election. We have already said that in the coming elections, our civic education is around election of leaders with values. We have developed civic education materials complete with a marking scheme for our people to be able to chambua before kuchagua, to be able to look at the integrity issues of the candidates that offer themselves for election. But I think moving forward, there is need for a national standard that will guide the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in vetting of the candidates, because this is a key question which has not been resolved, and it's something which we move forward with. This requires a fairly robust national discussion, because it is not just the religious sector. There are many other people out there who wants to be involved in these discussions, and it's very, very important that a national dialogue be encouraged around some of these critical questions that influence the course of our lives as a nation. And it's good that we have the media here present today to help us advance this dialogue within the religious sector, with the business people, with the educators, and the professionals who are involved in formation of our youth and other people. And it's good that the next representative to speak is a representative of the media owners, Mr. Linus Kakai, chairman of the Kenya Editors Guild, and we welcome him to say a few words and also to encourage this dialogue that we hope will thrive in our country today. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much indeed. Guest of honor, Dr. Manu Chandaria, Chair of the EACC, Archbishop retired Eliud Wabukala, bishops, reverends, pastors, all the religious leaders, and the staff and leadership of the EACC. I want to thank you for inviting us as media to this particular forum. And I start by saying that corruption is a very, very frustrating subject to discuss, especially in Kenya. When I was growing up in rural Transmara, Narok County, there was a neighbor, I remember that very clearly as a small boy, who never used to go to church, was not religious in any way. And as we went to church, we always noticed they were working, because we believed the Sunday, the day is set aside for worship. But on Sundays, we always saw this couple going to the farm. And one day, they got some domestic accidents. The old man was slashing something and he injured himself. And the wife was somewhere up the hills getting firewood and also cut herself accidentally. The coincidence was both of them injured their right hand side leg, their right legs. So superstition kicked in and they said there is something wrong. And I remember they came home and said they would like to see the priest. I think the essence of this little story is EACC this morning, calling in all the religious leaders, is basically a way of saying, we are in big trouble, we need you. And I think it's a good move. Archbishop Bukala, when I joined journalism, I'll be celebrating 20 years this year. I remember covering a story. If you remember, late 90s, the police had vehicles called Mahindras. And we at KTN at the time, where I was first year reporter, we also had Mahindras, 2 of them, as the ones that we were using for our news coverage. But in the course of our duty, we discovered that these Mahindras were not really helpful in helping the police respond fast enough to emergencies. And we did an experiment by actually joining one police response team to an incident in industrial area. And I remember Mutua, our driver, overtaking the same police vehicle twice before we reached the scene. And from there, we decided to do the story about Mahindras. We ended up in Kamsons along Mombasa Road. And that was my first experience with trouble, because we were going in very innocently and saying we're serving public interest. We want to see the company and ask them about the Mahindras. Because in the backyard of that company as well were tens of Mahindras that had gone bad, in a state of disrepair. So we wanted to expose this story. I was a very innocent journalist, and I didn't know this is not good, what we were doing, until a team from the Embakasi police arrived and picked us, took away the tape, and up to now, I don't know where that tape is. We had recorded very clearly to show how many vehicles were out there that the police can't use because they are low quality. I give this little story because the president of the SDA spoke of corruption bringing the country down to its knees. Reverend, I can assure you, in a majority of cases, this country operates from its knees. On the question of corruption, we are already on our knees. We are on our knees on corruption. Now, how does the media aid the fight against corruption? It does in many ways. If you look at all media houses right now, there is an investigative element to the stories that they do. There is actually an investigative desk where reporters are assigned to just sniff around, look around, talk to the EACC, talk to the police, talk to sources, find out, dig. And they do that constantly. And the product of that work includes the expose on Goldenberg in the 90s, Anglo-leasing in recent years, the May scandal in 2009, which really reminds me of what is going on currently. Recently, NYS and Afia House scandals. All these have been exposed because of the investigative aspects of the media work. But there is a situation that we all find ourselves in, even as media. Because the question is, what happens after the expose? When you report in such great detail about NYS, about Afia House, about Anglo-leasing, what next? Well, we are aware that the media doesn't have a prosecutorial role. We can't arrest. We can only expose. We can only tell you. But I want to submit here some of the challenges that we've been facing. And doctors will tell you their greatest worry is a disease that has a resistant strain. We've all heard of TB, tuberculosis, with a resistant strain. I want to submit here today that we are facing corruption with a resistant strain. The corruption we are facing in this current circumstances, is incapable of shame. You expose it, it doesn't just fight back, it actually wins. It fights back and wins. When we reported on the Afi House scandal, media was dismissed as peddling porojo at official circles. Sometimes they are described as agents of the opposition, fighting political causes. This is the resistant strain of corruption that we are facing. When media exposes, media depends on the conscience of society to then respond and act on it. When Richard Nixon's tapes were exposed in the 70s, he resigned because the conscience could not make it possible for him to continue serving as president. When we exposed the Laiko Regency or Grand Regency saga, we were told by Kenyan politicians, I'd rather die than resign. That is the resistant strain of corruption that we face in this country. Look at the trend. Corruption suspects in this country transform themselves very quickly, long before clearing their names, into new roles. They become the most eligible candidates for elective positions. You start with a scandal and you end up with an election win. That is the resistant strain of corruption that I am talking about. So I'm just submitting here that the media can only count on the conscience. When we expose, what does your conscience tell you from there? I always remember a story in India that was not about corruption. It was in the state of Uttar Pradesh. I think there was a shortage of onions. Onions in Kenya may be a small element in a meal. In India, it is a huge political issue. It actually forced the resignation of the regional chief minister because it's a conscience matter. I'm really delighted today that the gathering is a gathering largely of religious leaders, because I would like to urge you to start driving this country back on the path of conscience, because our conscience is in coma as a country. Nothing shocks us. Money is lost, so what? There is corruption, so what? That is our attitude. And in fact, you see on social media jokes about it with the Sheng word, utadu. That is the attitude. While I really welcome when some of the speakers here talk about addressing the younger generations, teaching the kids, teaching our children to grow as a cleaner generation, even singing the anti-corruption or integrity song here. All that may be useful, but as long as we don't do anything about the current situation, we will not resolve corruption. Because that strategy seems to exclude the current generation of adults. Yet that is where the problem is. The children we are talking of teaching, whose children are they? They are the children of this generation of the corrupt. So it's even possible genetically to actually pass corruption to the next generation. I would like to submit that we must do something now, not later. And I know religious leaders like telling us about the reward and beauty of heaven and the consequences of hell. I would like to suggest a new mode of preaching that focuses on the consequences here on earth, because there must be. If we are waiting, if you talk to these corrupt people about the beauty of heaven, they can't identify with it because they think they have created it here on earth. They live in very good places. Heaven has to be improved. I don't know how it looks like. It had better be good. So they don't feel it. You talk to them about the consequences of hell, fire and all that. They believe they can buy enough fire engines that can put off the fire in hell. What I'm saying, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are in a grave situation and we need to appreciate it. Let us talk about punishing corruption. Now, not later. Punishing here on earth. Now, not later. And where does the problem lie? The problem lies in two issues. One, do we really have the will to fight corruption? Do we really have the will to fight corruption? Number two, do we really have the stomach to punish high-level corruption? And I want to address the EACC at this point and say, you are not created because of those roadblocks that you set up sometimes and chasing traffic policemen. Those are petty criminals. That is petty corruption. EACC exists because we believe as a country we must do something about tackling high-level corruption. From the top leadership to the staff here, I want to challenge you tonight, now that I'm talking of conscience today. Before you sleep, ask yourself, have you delivered for the country? As an individual in the EACC. Because as a media person who observes you all the time, it's very frustrating to see that you may indeed be just giving lip service to the fight against high-level corruption. Submit to us. How many cases have successfully been prosecuted? Not long ago, a cartoonist drew Integrity Center, and I want to refer you to it. He drew Integrity Center and depicted it as a massage parlor where people, especially the high-level corruption suspects, go in, get massaged, and they come out. That could be the reality up to now because we have not seen any successful prosecution of high-level corruption in this country. And as long as we don't punish high-level corruption, we will continue holding meetings like this in futility. We will call in more religious leaders. We will pray. But unlike Elijah, who prayed for fire and it came down, we will not succeed. There'll be no fire, I'm sorry to say. Because this corruption is a crime like any other. As long as we don't have the will to punish it, then it will go nowhere. Archbishop Wabukala, I want to conclude by talking about our structures. And I'm really glad to hear my friend here talking about integrity and Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We have watered it so much, so much, that if there is any talk of constitutional review, this is one of the chapters we must relook at and give it some meaning. It exists as a shell of what it was supposed to be. Chapter 6 of the Constitution means nothing. It's pure public relations in our Constitution. Let's do our audit. We've had the Constitution for close to 10 years now, since 2010 up to now. What has Chapter 6 really delivered? The opposite is true. Leaders who never used to or possibly make it to the space of leadership are having it much easier now than it used to be. Yet we have Chapter 6. I think, Archbishop, we are in the middle of a values dilemma, because we believe in talking about them but not actually implementing them. And this is what has fed the resistant strain of corruption. We are going to see it and fight it and battle it for a very long time, as long as there is no single successful case of punishment of high-level corruption. The revolving door at EACC will stay in our minds as the perfect image of how we fight corruption. And by the way, I suggest actually that you should consider changing the look of that revolving door. It's not doing you as EACC very good, because that is the impression we get, that cases there just go round in circles. What goes in comes out, and goes in and comes out exactly the same way as it went, and exactly the same way it comes out. I think the EACC, I really want you to appreciate the frustration of Kenyans on this question of corruption. I really want you to appreciate that your scorecard doesn't read well as long as high-level corruption for which you are created has not been punished. I hope this partnership, and I want to urge the religious leaders to really push it in that direction. It's not about the traffic policemen who were arrested in a very dramatic way to show the media that EACC is working. Take a high-level corruption suspect to court, and hope of winning this battle shall begin there. We in the media will continue doing our best. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of sacrifice. We are glad we have not lost any lives in the course of the investigation of corruption. There are threats, but threats we can live with. And we want to assure you that the media will continue in its very aggressive coverage of these issues. We will continue exposing. But as Kenyans, because we are Kenyans, we will be happy if after exposing, something actually happens. Over to you, EACC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaikai, for those challenges of the resistance strain corruption that we are having to deal with, and the values dilemma that it brings with it, that must be actualized by a more robust application of Chapter 6 of our Constitution. I want to remind the religious leaders that we give a promise. We gave a promise when we were trying to mediate on this issue of the IEBC. We went to see the head of state, and one of the issues that were being taken forward required a constitutional amendment. and the head of state did challenge the religious leaders that if you wish for constitutional amendment, if you wish for an audit of the constitution and constitutional amendments, it's up to you to lead it. You have to take up the mantle after the elections and move to move the Kenyan masses to a robust discussion on what challenges the implementation of the constitution has placed on us, and what we need to do to amend it to be in line with the realities of life of Kenyans. And Mr. Kakai has pointed out that Chapter 6 is one of those major issues that we need to dialogue and find wisdom in making it serve Kenyans. And maybe if we still are committed to start the process of audit of the Constitution and thinking of how to move the Kenyan masses towards a direction of amending the Constitution after 10 years, that this is one area where we are still have a big job to do. I now wish to recognize amongst us two religious leaders who have joined us. The Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya, His Grace Archbishop Jackson Walisapit has come. Please wave to the members.
Good morning.
And also from the Evangelical Alliance, we have been joined by Bishop Abuka, who has been a member of this team, who has been discussing this collaboration between EACC and the religious sector. Thank you and welcome. I now wish to invite the chairperson of the EACC, Archbishop Retired Eliud Babukala, to give his remarks and to tell us how we are going to move forward in meeting the challenges of the values dilemma.
Was not speaking.
Sorry. Thank you, Vincent, for reminding me. I've just forgotten. Sorry, before the chairman speaks, I wish to invite the chair of the Interreligious Council of Kenya and also the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims to say something. He was actually supposed to be the one saying something now. I'm very sorry, Sheikh Adan Wachu. Please welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Kuria. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Ladies and gentlemen, Namaste. A lot of things have been spoken. And like in Nigeria, where a speaker had almost recognized everybody on the high table and the rest, and all the participants, they came to change that system later on and just said all protocols observed. Because initially you have to introduce almost everybody on the high table to the participants, but they found it was unnecessary, and they came back and said all protocols observed. I would like to say that. In fact, we should not be praying for EACC. We should be praying for the religious leaderships. A lot of responsibilities have now been placed on the religious leaderships. If we fail, then the religious leaderships are doomed. As religious leaders, we must be very, very careful. The National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee, where I'm also a member, went into partnership with the IRCK. And now the EACC has joined. All these responsibilities are coming to the religious leaderships. And if we fail, both institutions are headed by religious leaders. We have the Vice Chair, Reverend Jesse, heading the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. And we have retired Archbishop Wabukala, EACC. This is a heavy responsibility. If we fail in delivering, then the religious leaderships are doomed. We need to be very careful. We have been conscripted into this knowingly or unknowingly. And we need to be very, very careful about the whole process. It's not a joke. And we need to work together and see what is the best way out. Let me read this small speech. Guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored to welcome you all to this rare yet important gathering of religious leaders and other non-state actors, the EACC, and the people of goodwill to witness the launch of a partner framework and signing of an MOU between EACC and the religious institutions in Kenya. Corruption is a costly venture. This is factual to all of us, including those perpetuating the vice. The impact of corruption on fundamental aspects of human development, climate change, unemployment, democracy, and inequity is unimaginable. Closer to us, corruption has a significant bearing to the attainment of Vision 2030 and the actualization of provisions of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, particularly Article 4 on the Bill of Rights. During our last gathering on 1st February 2017, we duly observed that war against corruption requires multifaceted strategies bringing together all players, including government institutions, the private sector, non-government institutions, media houses, the religious sector, and most importantly, the general public. It is not lost upon us, as religious leaders, that the impact of corruption continues to shatter the moral fabric of the nation, that it must be fought by all of us at all costs. It is in this regard that we established a technical team to explore possible areas of collaboration with the EACC on the following pertinent areas. To use the place of worship to condemn corruption and lead the faithfuls towards discovering God's position and His direction on living a life of integrity. B, rally Kenyans to have peaceful elections and elect leaders with high integrity. And C, change the negative narratives and perceptions surrounding the fight against corruption to ensure each and every Kenyan play their role in the fight against the vice. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank the technical team under the coordination of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the Interreligious Council of Kenya for translating our commitment into action for their effort in making this partnership a success. The joint EACC and faith institutions collaboration and partnership action plan and the MOU embody the spirit of our initial engagement. Once again, thank you, all of you. It is in this regard that faith communities in Kenya, operating under the banner of Interreligious Council of Kenya, commit to this partnership, believing that it will serve as a building block for integrity in the society and efforts in the fight against corruption. Moving forward, the faith institutions will continue to work closely with EACC and other stakeholders in tackling corruption and unethical conduct in Kenya, with the view to nurturing a society where all people embrace integrity in their public and private sectors. My brothers and sisters, as I had earlier on said, when we went into this coalition with the EACC and previously with even the NACs, I was seriously thinking in my mind, what is the best way to fight corruptions? To my opinion, we do not have an answer yet. Whatever we say here or whatever is being done is just a figmentation. We need to have a paradigm shift. the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee and the EACC cannot work in isolation. If we as religious leaders and all major stake actors have unanimously agreed to be foot soldiers to this, we need to be sincere and we need to stand up against this. Linus said that exposure is too much. We don't see action. But my understanding of the Constitution, the little, is the EACC arrest and take the suspects to court. We've been having problems with our courts. If accused persons takes time to be tried or even receive convictions, there will be little EACC will do. They have taken from this end and taken it to people who dispense thorough justice. We need to interrogate our court systems. Why should a trial take 4 months, 5 months, 6 months? An advocate comes and says, we need to take a death. It jumps to 1 year. And in between, anything happens. We have nothing to blame EACC here. As religious now leaders, we have agreed to be part of this. We need to have a joint thorough meeting with the judicial systems and find out why trials take long in this country. With those few and many remarks, religious leaders, you don't only have to work with EACC, you also have to work with the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. This is a committee whose responsibility solely is to preach against corruptions, moving from one region to the other. The current chair of EACC was a chair of the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. He knows the game very well. And I would like us to get together, come together, and see how we can fight this monster together. God bless all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheikh Wachu, for those remarks, and again, my apologies for that small hiccup. I now wish to invite the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to give his remarks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kuria. As my colleagues have started saying, all protocols observed. That's because I'm excited to see that all of you have responded to come to our meeting. May I take this opportunity to say good afternoon. I hope it is still afternoon. I am so delighted that you have come to join EACC and sort of start a dialogue together on how we can fight corruption. Just before I make any talks, I want to say a small story from this book. This was a book developed between EACC and the Evangelical Alliance. It's called Integrity, a Weapon Against Corruption. Now, in this book, there is a story about a rat. You know rats, eh? A rat was looking in the house of the boss at night, and as it was peeping in, it saw the people putting a trap in a bag so that they can get this rat. When it saw it, it said, oh, there is danger in that house. So it went and told the chicken, today I saw our boss getting a trap in the house. But the chicken said, of course, that's not a problem to me. That's your problem. That trap cannot hold me. Then the rat again was very anxious. It went to the cow. I saw our boss putting a trap inside. And then the cow said, what is the trap? That's nonsense. And it was still wondering, who can help? Then it went to, what you call this, where you eat mutton, pigs, the pig. And the pig said, I'm so fat, what are you telling me? So the rat came back and said, what can I do? Now at night, a snake came in the house, and the trap got the snake. And the snake bit the boss's wife's leg, so she got poisoned, and she was taken somewhere. Then they said, for the medicine of this lady, you need the soup of a chicken. So the doctor prescribed the soup. Now what they did, they looked for the chicken, it was slaughtered, soup was given. For the wound to soothe, they need some oil from the pig. So the pig was taken. And then unfortunately she died. And at the funeral, arrangements were made and so many guests came. For the food, a cow was needed. And so the cow was slaughtered. What am I saying, my brothers and sisters? The war against corruption cannot be fought by one person. And that's my delight today with the EACC that you have accepted to come, and we are signing a memorandum of understanding with the entire religious fraternity in this country to fight corruption. We are moving on with the other stakeholders. I'm so delighted to have the media here. And Mr. Kaikai, thank you for the wonderful remarks that our conscience is numb, and I think it's something we must now work on to ensure that Kenyans are aroused to deal with corruption as a problem that can bring down this country. Big civilizations have fallen because of corruption. Rome, Greece, name them. If you read the history properly, it's corruption that can bring down even the biggest civilization. And so religious leaders have come here to ensure that Kenya does not fall. I want to say this is a new beginning. A new beginning to rewrite the narrative about corruption in this country. To say that it is possible, the will of the Kenyan, represented by these religious leaders here and other stakeholders, can be strengthened to remove the scourge of corruption. I'm glad when I joined the EACC about 3 months ago, I had to take time to see what culture am I joining. And all of you, media, and all other people are actually screaming with their high voices, Your Grace, you have gone into some hyenas. How will you survive? And so I had to take time and understood the culture, allow them to understand me, and then together we begin to craft the way forward in handling corruption. I'm very grateful that time has now come for all of us to start that journey. And the religious leaders have understood it so well. The international community has been very supportive. The presence of the representation from the British High Commission, Your Excellencies, thank you for coming. From the American Embassy, Your Excellency, who has sent you, thank you for coming. From the Danish Embassy and others who are actually working with us, I want to thank you that you are together to ensure that Kenya is freed from this scourge of corruption. Now, I want to thank the technical team that helped to draft what we are going to sign. And perhaps it is good if they stood up so that we give them a clap, led by Mr. Nyamoya, who was brought to us through Bishop Okinde and the rest. Please just stand wherever you are, from NCK family, from the Muslim. Yes, those people have written something, and that's the thing we shall look at. Why can we give them a clap? I also want to thank our own staff, EACC. They are very hard-working people. I want to tell you, my friends, despite that rotating door, these people reach there very early, and they are very committed Kenyans. I think us is to encourage them. I joined a team which every Kenyan is vilifying. And you know, when you vilify your child so much, you can make him believe that it's a bad child. And therefore, it's good to encourage them I want to thank them for that work. Perhaps let's give a clap to the EACC and the entire team. Thank you. And my colleagues, the religious sector leaders who have come, because I came from you, as my friend has mentioned, I am happy that you have come to the aid of all of us. I know that you left a lot of work to be done at your critical places, and you have come to join us. So I want to extend my sincere gratitude to all of you, my friends who have come to be with us in this meeting. Allow me to thank each one of you for the efforts that you have put in this endeavor. And in particular, I thank the joint committee which I have introduced, because they have worked tirelessly to ensure that we have this day. My brothers and sisters, we all understand the magnitude of corruption in this country. Apart from its effects, corruption is also multifaceted, and it's a challenge which we cannot eradicate with just one institution. The Commission has continued to exercise its mandate of combating and preventing corruption and economic crime in Kenya, as provided for in the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Act of 2011. However, implementing the kind of mandate in a country where fundamental values of the integrity have deteriorated to worrying levels requires concerted efforts of each and every citizen. I want to say this, that indeed the fundamental issue we are addressing is a value problem. When you say that our conscience is not aroused when we do wrong, when we can profile almost every case of corruption and nobody's moved, when you find that somebody has been accused of corruption and the Kenyans elect that person to a political office, that tells you that Kenyans then have we have a responsibility of arousing the conscience of every Kenyan so that we are able to succeed. When I was appointed chair of this commission in January, my first observation was that the commission had been left to fight corruption single-handedly. Everybody points a finger at EACC. Why can't you stop corruption? They say. And I have done a little research. I've been to UK and I've seen how the British government fights corruption. Thank you, Your Excellency, for that opportunity. And well, we have also done a bit of benchmarking with Hong Kong, where also there's a robust fight against corruption. The case of Hong Kong, for example, has got about a budget of about 13 billion shillings earmarked for corruption fight. They have got over 1,500 people employed in their commission, but it's a population of only 7 million. Now, Kenya has about 45 million now. It has a commission which employs around 600 people. And we are receiving cases about corruption every day. As I speak, I think there are statistics which we shall look at, but they are not less than 700 cases maybe in a week or so. And so we are stretched to ensure we attend to these cases. Now, we cannot, and this is important, that it's not EACC alone, not the police, not Parliament alone, not Transparency International trying to help us, get into the indexes. It is all of us. And today's meeting is to create that new beginning in a movement that allows every Kenyan, through their religious associations, to begin to handle corruption as our challenge. And so I've realized that there's an urgent need to reach out, not only to state actors, but also to all actors that are in this country to help us deal with our mandate. The reasons are simple. Corruption is caused by a lack of sound morals. And I think religious leaders are the teachers of morality. And secondly, they have a very huge platform. I'm therefore most grateful that they have graciously accepted. And together we will surmount this challenge and deliver our country from the stronghold of corruption and lack of integrity. We actually have to deliver this, my brothers and sisters. It's our generation that can now deliver Kenya from this scourge. We shall propose, I think, with agreement with the other stakeholders, that perhaps very early after the elections, we call a National Integrity Day. All of us together call for a National Integrity Day where we covenant every Kenyan to begin anew and stop corruption moving forward. I'm also pleased to report, however, that EACC has made commendable progress in the war against corruption. While I was there, I noticed things are happening because we encouraged ourselves as staff that we want to be proactive. You have said it very rightly, our friends who have spoken, that the prosecution is expensive. These high-profile cases you have talked about, these people have taken a lot of money. Before you jail that person, he has employed the best lawyer in the country. He has all the networks to frustrate the efforts of the commissions. This is a very challenging thing. And it's not just in Kenya. I was told even in Britain that these cases are always complicated when it involves huge amounts of money and high-profile people. So we have to go for preventive measures. We have encouraged ourselves to go for preventive measures, which also involve disruption of the monies before they are stolen. And I wish to report that since January, the Commission has managed to preserve assets worth more than 335 million Kenya shillings. And a total of 432 cases are now pending in court. We have 1,340 officials charged with various corruption offenses. And as part of our proactive activities, these officers at the Commission have disrupted loss of public funds close to 1.6 billion through our overt operations. Now, some of these things we don't mention them, because if you mention, you lose the battle. We do that to ensure the money is not taken out. Before somebody wants to take it, we have stopped it. And it was very nice that 1.6 billion was able to be stopped from being taken away. So as we face this year's general elections, for example, the Commission has partnered with the stakeholders. And now, in terms of Chapter 6, as you have just mentioned, we want to play our critical role of vetting candidates contesting for various elective positions. We are very grateful to you, my friends, that you have appreciated our predicaments in terms of Chapter 6 and our vetting process. But that notwithstanding, we are doing our part in terms of doing that which we are allowed to do, in terms of vetting those people who want to stand for elections. To this end, we have received self-declaration forms from a total of 16,140 aspirants. Can you imagine? That's the kind of volume that has come to us in terms of self-declaration. Now, self-declaration forms are those forms where a person is asked so many questions and he declares that indeed he has so much, he has never been jailed, he has had no problem, and he signs, and then he delivers it to us. Now, in future, when we find this person with a problem, we go back to the form and say, but you declared that you are innocent, and it's possible to institute a court case against such a person, even when he is in the office. And so we have received 16,140 forms in our office. Out of these, 11 are for presidential candidates. So I don't know whether one of them is here. But we have received from Jubilee presidential candidate. I think you know that one. We have received from the NASA presidential candidate. I think you know that one. And then we have received from others who are about the other 9. They are there in our place. Now 3 are for deputy president, 263 for governor, 81 for deputy governor, 333 for senators, 361 for woman representative, 1,964 for members of parliament, and a huge 12,913 for members of county assembly. The commission is in the process of verifying the information to determine their suitability for the aspirants to vie for these various offices. I know you will have questions. When you discover they have not qualified, what do you do? We shall make our recommendation and send to the IEBC, who are mandated legally to take the necessary action. Considering the enormity of the assignment placed on the Commission by the Constitution and the people of Kenya, we have invited all of you, the faith-based organizations, the private sector, and I want to thank our brother Mani Chandara Daktari for coming. You stand in that shoe of the private sector. We have also had a contact with the Matatu Welfare Association. We are in the process of creating the same arrangements as civil society to join us in this war. We are confident that the efforts will bear positive results. As we do this, we must focus on the values that lead to a life that pleases God. Now, what we are trying to say is that let us change the narrative of not pointing fingers, but of collaboration in order to create a critical mass of Kenyans who are opposed to corruption. And this critical mass will help us to push forward and handle the big people up there, so that our war is going to be both at the top, we hit the top, as Mr. Kaikai has said, seriously, but at the same time stir the common public, so that together we meet here and we shall have to do away with corruption. So my friends, as a commission, we have collaborated with you, and today we want to continue with a second step of signing an MOU that will help to begin our work together. Under EACC strategic plan, the Commission has a strategic objective of establishing, maintaining partnerships and networks, and this is part of that adventure. Now, the joint best faith organizations partnership with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has brought together, as you have noticed in our introductions, over 10 umbrella bodies. Perhaps we were not able, as our MC was trying to introduce people to speak, to have all of you speak to us. But we recognize your presence. Those who spoke in terms of the umbrella organizations were speaking on our behalf. And we were so grateful. When I see the elders of these churches here, of the mosques and the temples here, I want to request that we take this responsibility together very seriously. We have met in order to do about 5 things. 1, to enlist public support in enhancing ethics, integrity, and anti-corruption. Let us go out there using our spheres of influence to get public support, so that these people of Kenya will have to deal with corruption as a challenge to all of us and to our nation. We want to increase citizen and stakeholder engagement in combating, preventing corruption and unethical practices in Kenya. Now, as we do that, we recognize that indeed the media has done a commendable job. Actually, I'm so grateful because they have highlighted issues of corruption. Every Kenyan is now aware. what is the disconnect? It is that we are not taking action. So let us now change the gear from awareness to giving people the capacity and the willingness to take action. If you can recall, I think when there was this initial NACA government came about 2003 or so, Kenyans were so energized. And just for a week or two, they took care of their country. I remember they could arrest a policeman and take that person to the police station. They had a capacity. Unfortunately for us, we don't sustain the positive things we get. Let us now change that gear and begin to take action and at the same time sustain the positive steps that we get. We want to increase the influence to influence national attitude and behavior change towards corruption. We want to enhance leadership, institutional capacity, and accountability against corruption in all sectors. I want also to say that as EACC, we are helping various offices and sectors to strengthen their structures, to see the loopholes that encourage corruption. And we want to call upon all of us who are heads of those institutions that we need to be accountable. When corruption takes place inside our own institutions, we need to be accountable for that. Take the lead against that corruption in your institutions. We want to drive demand for improved performance, for transparency, for accountability, and even for the results in all our sectors. I think it's not good to have lip service. This time round, let Kenyans demand for results. Media, you are right. When you point out things and you demand people to give results, continue to do that. Because that's one way of putting that pressure that will help us, even the courts, as they convict people, they feel safe. Because if you don't do it, those who are convicted and are powerful will fight back. Let them not use the media to fight back. Don't allow them that space, Mr. Kaikai. Because when I have put him in, don't allow him that space to fight back against the institutions that are fighting this corruption. We also want to safeguard an effective implementation of the joint strategy that we have now developed. We have a matrix that we have now come up with. Let us look at it, safeguard it, and push it forward to ensure that the local Mwananchi has taken charge of the fight against corruption. We also intend to strengthen our mandate. I have had here the challenges that we have, the legal bottlenecks that exist. I think with the whole collective capacity of the regions in the country, we are capable of pushing for a legal framework that strengthens this organization. For example, we can say, let an investigation be a joint effort between all these institutions, the prosecution, and before it reaches the court, we have secured a tight evidence to make sure our cases don't flop. And for you, my fellow religious leaders, tell our Christians and our religious people that when somebody is brought to EACC, he should not come with them. You know, they escort the person. Si mnaona wanabeba matawi, wana escort huyu mtu mpaka kwa EACC. That's a wrong culture. Wacha mtu abebe nini? Msalaba yake. Because anaharibu uchumi wa nchi yetu. One of the key activities, the action plan will be targeting is the youth. You have talked about the young people, and we are grateful that you are also concerned. I think as we deal with the old people, we also deal with the young people. Because as we plant our message of good values, of patriotism, of integrity to the young, then we deal with the old, in future we shall have a good country. And the EACC has started what they call integrity clubs, which each club in the schools have patrons, And we want to actually find out if we can get role models. And religious leaders, perhaps that's one way of making Kenya a good place. We also need to celebrate good things. We must also give hope to our people. Sometimes we talk about the bad all the time, and then we become so pessimistic. But there is hope, I think. If there are good people in your villages, celebrate them. Bring them up as mentors, as role models, and we celebrate that. Just last month, EACC was picked for something which I thought Kenyans would have celebrated with them, but nobody wanted to do that. They were recognized as the best anti-corruption agency in Africa, Commonwealth Africa, and in evidence analysis and storage, whatever it was. And then it was, thank you for the papers, you wrote it for that one. But no Kenyan. Wherever I passed, I was expecting someone to say, nothing. So I think it's good to encourage each other, that there are some good things we must build on, so that we create a positive society that does not just look at itself as a failure. It can be alive from Satan to always be pointing to people and tell them, you are not able. You are not able. And then it clicks into your psyche, and indeed you fail. So let's give that hope to the Kenyan. And I can assure you this war against corruption is something that is internal, as I have said elsewhere. Just Jesus told us in chapter 7 of Mark, that what corrupts, what defiles, is from inside. From inside of a person, of course the Bible says inside of a man and also a woman, come evil thoughts. And these evil thoughts corrupt. One of them is greed. And that greed should be tamed so that it does not now infiltrate the entire society. So my dear friends, as I conclude, I hope that with the launch of this joint partnership action plan, all of us will be fully equipped to reach other Kenyans and the society at large. I want to conclude with the remarks from the words, again in the Bible, that you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify God, your Father in heaven. Our work is really to give glory to God and to bring honor to Kenya. That's all that we need to look at. Bring honor to this country and give glory to God. And so with those many remarks, thank you so much for coming, and may God bless us together. Thank you so much. I have another responsibility, my friends. We invited one of our own to become our chief guest today, and he accepted, despite the many responsibilities he has in this country. Dr. Manu Chandaria, I have known him for quite some time. When I was Archbishop, where my brother now, Olisapit, is, we worked very closely with Dr. Manu Chandaria, particularly on peace issues. Together we went to the Philippines and addressed a very big rally, international meeting on peace, in addition to other activities that we are doing in this country. He is known to all of us as a very hard worker, and I think that's one of the qualities that we must inculcate in Kenyans, particularly our younger people, that life must be a life of work, so that you earn what you want to get. It's not free. So he is a model for all of us about hard work, about peace, and it's an inspiration. Therefore, I have this opportunity to welcome Dr. Manu Chandara to give us his keynote address. My brother, welcome.
These are not all intimidating short people. Hamjambu. I don't see it. I'm sure that there was no breakfast, but at least you have something at home. Come on, Hamjambu. Now, first thing I would like you to take up this machine, put it upside down in the front of you.